Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. You probably knew your smart TV is already collecting a lot of data about you, but what you might not be aware of is that the data collection goes far beyond what your usage statistics are. These televisions now are equipped to read visual and audio data from not only the apps built into the TV, but also things that you plug into it, like your game console or your Apple TV or some other device. Additionally, things that you stream to it from your phone, like your home movies, are also snapshotted and collected and sent off to data brokers. And this is why when you walk into Walmart, you can buy yourself a nice 50-inch television for $228, complete with 4K and all of the modern accoutrements. They got to get their money back somehow, and how they do it is by collecting information about what's on that screen all the time. It's kind of scary, and we're going to dive into this topic right now. Now, before we dive into this week's topic, I do want to let you know that this video is being sponsored by all of you. That includes everyone who watches and subscribes on a regular basis, along with those of you who contribute to the channel, either through my donor box page at Lon.TV/support, through the YouTube membership program, through Patreon or Floatplane. All of your support is greatly appreciated, and it keeps the lights on around here. We also have a fun merch store that you'll find down below in the shelf if you wanted to pick up a coffee mug or something like that. So now let's get into this week's topic. So how do these smart TVs spy on you? Well, it's more than just looking at what apps you load up. Most televisions now employ a technology called ACR, otherwise known as automatic content recognition. And what this does is it monitors what the TV is outputting, both the video and the audio. It takes samples of that content, visual images and audio snippets, sends them off to a server to get identified, and from that they build a profile about your household as to what you are watching, to direct ads to you either through the built-in system or to sell that data to data brokers who then hit you on Facebook and all the other places where they're tracking you. And it's insane how deep this goes. And I, of course, knew about this, but I didn't realize how deep it went until I turned on my LG television the other day. And this TV, by the way, is I think 8 years old. I bought an LG OLED back in 2018 or whatever I got it. And I love this TV, the best television I ever owned. And every once in a while, it's got a firmware update. And I was asked to reapprove my privacy agreements here. And I was shocked to learn about exactly what it's doing. So in the case of my old LG television here, what it's doing is actually monitoring what's going through the HDMI inputs. That includes the set-top boxes. I'm using an Apple TV on that television. It looks at gaming consoles, media players, over-the-air broadcasts, or any other audio-visual source that connects to your device. And remember, a lot of us are doing more than just watching streaming services. We're often putting our home movies through these televisions, either through our phones or our Apple TVs or whatever else we might be using. And so they're able to vacuum up a large amount of personal data here and just ship it off. And if you don't have the time to scroll through your television's thing here, it will do that. You have to opt out of this, even though many of them insinuate that it's an opt-in because you have to approve it. What happens, though, if you opt out? Well, in the case of my LG television, you'll watch it on the video here. When I went to opt out of everything here and I hit agree to the opt-out, it tells me that I changed my terms of service and I'm unable to actually use any of the smart TV functions. So after I did this, my television would not let me load up any of the built-in apps anymore because I denied it access to this ACR technology, and I'm brought right back to the user agreement page. Now, not all of these TV manufacturers are as upfront as LG was about how they're using your data. So for example, on a Samsung TV, the language is a little more ambiguous. Remember, Samsung will sell you that 50-inch TV at Walmart for $228. And if you dive into one of the many privacy notices that you agree to when you turn on your television, buried in there is a bullet about the ACR technologies that they use, but they don't really go into any depth as to how they collect that information. So it is very, very ambiguous. You can, of course, turn it off on the Samsung TV. So you have to go into the interest-based advertisement section here. And then when you jump into that menu, there is a disable Sync Plus and interactive functions. And I believe if you disable that, that will get you out of the ACR. It looks like, though, the Samsung apps will still work. This TV that I've got is so old that the apps aren't all that functional anymore, just like my LG television, but it's still very good at spying on me. And then, of course, we have Fire TV from Amazon. Now, Amazon, of course, makes set-top boxes. Those do not do ACR, but they report everything else you do on them. But the TVs running the Fire TV OS do it. And they do have a pretty lengthy FAQ if you follow my link that you see on screen here, Lon.TV/Amazon Spy. And in there, they define what automatic content recognition is in relation to their televisions. And what Amazon will do is create a digital fingerprint of the content you watch, either encoded from the audio or the pixel samples of the actual content. And then it uses that to fingerprint match content in a database of movies, TV shows, and ads. Part of what they do with this is to see what ads are appearing on a television so that they can sell that data to advertisers to make sure that their ads are actually getting seen by people on some of these over-the-top services. Now, Amazon says they'll discard the fingerprints if the content doesn't match, but they're still collecting that fingerprint from a home video, which of course should concern people. Now, Amazon does say what they do with the data, so they say that they'll collect viewing data about the content you view through connected devices, and that will include the networks, the channels, the advertisements, and the programs watched. They'll combine that with other personal information, and again, that will be used to sell advertising to you. They do say that your viewing experience will improve because you'll see less ad repetition and whatnot, but nonetheless, I think they're gaining a lot more than the viewers are by spying on what's going across your HDMI plug there. Now, for better or for worse, Roku is probably the most upfront about how they use this data and sell it. They have a blog post that they have on their corporate website that they use to send to potential ad clients about how great their data collection technology is. Definitely do the whole read. I think it'll give you a good idea as to exactly what the industry is doing with this data. You can find this at Lon.TV/Roku Spy. And what they say here is that if a Roku viewer has opted into ACR data collection and is watching TV, for instance on their cable box or playing a game on their console, we take a fingerprint of that content and match it to our catalog. This allows us to understand on a second-by-second basis what content viewers are watching on their linear TVs, what ads they saw, how much of an ad they viewed, so they actually have some duration that they can discern from this. And they also understand what games they are playing. And they say such granular measurement is unprecedented. Of course it is, because they can monitor what every one of their televisions is doing. And this whole notion of opting in is not all that accurate, because when you buy your television and you enable the smart TV experience on Roku, it turns all this stuff on. So it's not really an opt-in so much as it is an opt-out, because if you don't enable it, you can't get access to a lot of these features, or you have to go back in later and turn them off. Roku also has a roadmap for the future of this service. So they did a lot apparently in the 2024 US presidential election, and they've got a whole data set that is made available now to advertisers for future elections. And then with gaming, they're just scratching the surface. They say that in the US, more than 50% of the devices connected to Roku smart TVs are gaming consoles. And with ACR, they know which games are being played on those consoles and for how long. And they're giving game developers and ideas to what people are actually playing on their televisions here. Lots to be concerned about. Now, the opt-out here isn't all that difficult. You go into your preferences here, and you have to go over to advertising, and then you can say, don't personalize my ads. That's the first thing you need to do. And then you can go back out and go over to the smart TV experience, and I have it turning now off my use info from TV inputs option here, and that will prevent Roku from getting that data, or at least we think it does, because it's just a checkbox. It doesn't mean they can't still collect the data or find some other way to do it. But the fact that you have to opt out of these things in multiple places is really quite frustrating. Now, I had a very difficult time trying to figure out what TVs equipped with Google's operating system do. There was nothing on Google's website about the types of data collection that they do beyond the basics that they will share your information about app usage with other third parties. But it looks like it might depend on who's making the TV that's equipped with Google TV. So for example, I did find this 2019 privacy notice from Hisense, and this relates to their Google TV televisions. And what it says here, that if you opt in, which of course is really more of an opt-out than an opt-in, they will collect ACR data from the Hisense Google TV devices, and those data collections include audio and video from things that are attached, much like the other manufacturers are doing. Incidentally, I wonder if Google's struggles with the Google TV operating system and earning revenue from it might relate to the fact that perhaps Google is not actually running this ACR technology themselves on their operating system and allowing the manufacturers to do it. Perhaps that is resulting in Google seeing less revenue than their competitors, who are all employing this on the televisions that they license with their operating system. But I would imagine Google's probably doing it as well as the manufacturer. But who knows? We really don't have much of a window into what these manufacturers are doing. If you own a Google TV, do me a favor and pull up the privacy policy on the set itself, because I couldn't find anything on Sony's website. Sony's a big manufacturer of these televisions, but you know it's got to be in there. So I think a lot of them just keep it on the TV itself and hoping that you don't scroll through it while you're trying to boot up Netflix to watch your evening shows or whatever. So let me know in the comments section. Now, we haven't talked much about the set-top boxes and streaming sticks that you can get out there for a very low price. These devices do collect a lot of data. I'm sure they must look at perhaps the imagery from ads that are coming across. But what I wanted to focus on today is more about what you're plugging into your television, because if you're getting an Apple TV thinking that it's more privacy secured, which it is, the fact is what that Apple TV is doing is getting sent out somewhere, because it's going across that HDMI plug into the television, which is then spying on what your Apple TV is doing. So my advice is, if you stop using your TV's internal apps, I would disconnect the television from the internet completely, and that way you have some of the protection that the Apple devices provide. Apple's devices are not perfect, but they're a lot better than any of the other players out there, and that's why this player is my go-to these days for watching content. And I, of course, have disconnected my LG television from the internet too. Now, there's a great article on Consumer Reports that dives into this feature. This article gets updated quite frequently with instructions as to how to turn this stuff off on your smart TV. They cover most of the major brands, so you can go to Lon.TV/CRPrivacy to check that out. It is a good read and worth taking a look at, because if it creeps you out that your home movies might be sent off to some company in India, I think you may want to look at this article and get yourself some additional security for your private stuff that you think is private in your own home, which of course it no longer is. So that is the spy in your TV. Let me know what you thought down in the comments section. I would love to hear those of you with Google TVs again, to let me know what you're seeing in the privacy policies there. But this really surprised me, because I kind of knew it was out there, but I never really dug into it until I read the fine print on my LG television sitting on my couch the other day. Scary stuff. That will do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.